There's a new Twitter cartoon. Yes, you heard that right. A cartoon is being produced for Twitter. It's called The New Norm, and it is quite possibly one of the worst fucking things I have ever had the displeasure of seeing. Remember, like a month ago, everyone was making fun of that Daily Wire cartoon called Mr. Bitch or whatever the fuck it was called? Basically because it was just a rehash of every tired, conservative, quote-unquote joke known to man. Isn't the younger generation so fucking crazy with all their wacky genders and their crazy hair colors? And they get offended by the littlest fucking things, which usually means we can't be prejudiced without being called out anymore. Well, this show, if you could fucking believe it, seems to be even worse than that one. It stars Norm, an Archie Bunker lookalike, but without any of the great writing All in the Family had. Even on this show's official website, there's a quote from Kevin Sorbo, an actor who spends most of his days being a conservative dipshit on Twitter, hailing this show as All in the Family for our time. That is his exact quote. And I swear, All in the Family has to be one of the most misunderstood shows of all time. Archie was a blithering idiot who refused to move with the times. And the show portrayed him exactly that way. His bigotry and overall ignorant viewpoints were oftentimes the butt of the jokes. So any conservative who identifies with them and thinks the show stands with them, they are exposing their complete lack of media literacy. But anyway, literally the very first joke of this show is Norm grabbing a beer can, looking at the beer can, and going like, ah, all because the beer can had a pride flag on it. It's really incredible how they're still on this fucking Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light controversy, quote unquote. Your piss water is going to remain exactly the same regardless of who or what is on the can. If you're still freaking out about this over a year later, then maybe you yourselves are the snowflakes that you make fun of, but introspection is really difficult for conservatives. The most insufferable thing about this show is that these characters aren't even really characters, but rather just caricatures. Norm is just your typical boomer conservative who does nothing all day but whine about quote-unquote wokeness. There's a non-binary character with a purple mohawk and an N95 mask sent to Norm's home to re-educate Norm to be more politically correct. Because in this pilot, Norm is under house arrest for threatening his daughter's school board for, I guess, teaching students to be inclusive of trans people. Yes, this totally is someone we should be rooting for. The non-binary character is voiced by Dave Rubin, a conservative commentator who's also openly gay, and it speaks volumes that this is the character whoever the fuck created this show chose him to play. Because this character is supposed to be a representation of how out of control, ridiculous, and fragile the LGBT community supposedly is, and the only gay man in the cast is voicing this character. And Dave Rubin is so fucking stupid and just goes to wherever a paycheck is, and he was probably like, okay, I'll gladly debase myself and voice a character that's meant to reduce the community of people that I am a part of to just a punching bag. There's also Charlie, Norm's friend, and obligatory black sidekick who agrees with everything the bigoted white main character says. He is just a token for the creators to say, see, Norm isn't racist because we have this black character in the show who agrees with everything he says. When newsflash, if the only black character in your show is meant to be a source of validation for the bigoted shit your main character says, that's actually pretty racist. That just screams that you don't really give a fuck about people of color beyond conveniently only the ones that agree with what you say. And even then, the main reason why you associate with them is so you can deflect any accusation of being racist and say, nuh-uh, I'm not actually racist. Here's my black friend who agrees with what I'm saying. Well, it's 2024 and that tactic doesn't really work anymore because most people realize by this point, if you only view people of color as merely tokens to use as an attempt to quell any suspicions of you being bigoted, that is in itself, well, bigoted. Moving on from that, I do have to give this show some credit. It did manage to offend me. Granted, not for any of the reasons it sought, but this show utilizes a laugh track. This is an animated show with a laugh track. I figured after like 60s Hanna-Barbera cartoons, we've realized that cartoons don't fucking need laugh tracks. In fact, nothing needs laugh tracks. Now look, I've enjoyed my share of sitcoms that have had laughter in them. As mentioned previously, All in the Family, my favorite sitcom of all time actually. Now granted, that show had a live studio audience and it wasn't canned laughter, so that was more bearable. But whatever, sitcoms from 50 years ago, having laughter was the norm. The norm. So I can put that aside and tolerate it, but if a sitcom has come out in the past like 20 years and still utilizes a laugh track, chances are I am not fucking watching it. We have had many sitcoms come out in the past like 25 years or so at this point that have not utilized laugh tracks and have still proven to be fucking hilarious and successful even without laugh tracks. Shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Office, It's Always Sunny come to my mind immediately. I don't need a cue from the show itself to know when to laugh. What the fuck am I, 5? If I find your show funny, I will naturally laugh, but maybe, just maybe, on some level, the creators of this show knew that they were making absolute dog shit, and that no one in their right mind would be laughing at such predictable anti-woke humor. And they added that laugh track in because they knew that would be the only laughter you would be hearing from the jokes made on this show. And that's the new norm. It's really fitting that this show's hero is an out-of-touch old man because that's the only type of person I could imagine unironically enjoying this show. But if you don't believe me when it comes to how awful this show is, I'll link a YouTube upload of the pilot in the description. If your brain begins to disintegrate in the process of watching this show, don't blame me, you clicked on that link at your own discretion. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.